Let them eat cake.
Here, take the bomb.
I am so sorry.
Man, you gotta love it when the content just makes itself. Creator Hailey Bailey of TikTok fame seems to be undergoing a bit of a notorious shift in her online narrative or digital footprint. No longer is she the comedic, lifestyle, goofy girl on TikTok. Now she's being accredited with causing the downfall of present-day celebrity and influencer culture. Specifically the influencers who have obtained great wealth, not just recognition. For Miss Bailey, this all begun with the posting of the outfit she wore to interview people on the behalf of E! News at the Met Gala. The Met Gala is an exclusive elitist event that is supposed to be centered on raising exuberant amounts of funds for the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute. The gala encourages invited attendees to dress in extravagant costumes that align with the yearly theme, this year's being the Garden of Time. In this beautiful gown that was apparently handmade by her close friend that Haley so kindly did not pay despite having the funds to rent a $17,000 apartment in New York City, she lip-synced to the popular sound Let Them Eat Cake, which of course is a nod to the now disproven speculations that Marie Antoinette, former Queen of France prior to the People's Revolution, responded with this phrase when asked what her starving people should eat. Though it is now widely accepted that Marie Antoinette did not say this, no one would really be surprised had she said it then or now, given both her and the French elite's selfish desires to bask in their own glory and overconsume food that was very much needed by the French people. In other words, it doesn't really matter whether or not she said the thing because her actions already indicated that same level of flippancy and self-interest. For many people who share the clock out with Miss Bailey, her TikTok incited such a rage that it led them to creating a new trend called Blockout 2024.
Hailey Bailey just accidentally started a revolution against the rich and famous.
In this trend, and I will explain later why I am calling this a trend and not a movement, people have taken upon themselves to block any and all celebrities or wealthy influencers who have not shown or provided support to the people of Palestine. And speaking of which, I did want to take a brief moment and direct you guys to my description box as well as my pinned comment that includes donation programs to Palestinians, the Sudanese, and the Congolese. I've of course included Operation Olive Branch, which is a grassroots movement organization that supports and amplifies aid requests from Palestinians. With this program, you can find families on GoFundMe and directly donate to their efforts to relocate to a safe location while ensuring they also have the funds to prosper once there. At the time of posting, I would have linked the top 3 people or families that are behind on their goals, and moreover, because GoFundMe does have a donation minimum of $5, I wanted to provide 2 other alternatives for those who may not have $5 to spare at this time. The first would be if you have less than $1,000 in your bank account, I would recommend utilizing Venmo or Zelle with your friends or family to pull together money and then send the funds collected to charity. There is a TikToker by the name of Yuval who uses Venmo in this manner, but on a much larger scale with his audience. If you wanted to, you could double check that he still has a GoFundMe linked in his bio for a family or person that is in need, and then Venmo him $1. He is currently keeping all of his Venmo transactions public, and he will be donating all funds acquired through Venmo to the GoFundMe account linked to his bio. But if that's uncomfortable for you because he is indeed a random dude on the internet, please check out the organizations below that only have $1 minimums. It can unfortunately be very hard to find viable ethical charities, but I did do my best to research each one linked. For example, I am aware that Islamic Relief USA has been under scrutiny before due to how much of the funds they utilize for overhead costs, but they do have a Palestinian emergency fund that you can donate $1 to. If I missed something major about any of these organizations, please feel free to comment under my pinned comment and I will adjust accordingly. But now back to Miss Bailey and unimportant shenanigans. And while you're down there, go ahead and subscribe for more nonsense. Now, you've probably been asking yourself this entire time, why is Justice standing in her kitchen? Well, my friends, my poets, Miss Bailey said to eat cake. And I myself am a peasant. So I thought I'd bake a cake to break up the monotony of just sitting down and filming. My script is still in video essay style, so if you don't like this, don't tell me. I do what I want. We're gonna be making party rainbow chip cake because the people I live with don't like chocolate cake. So with Haley, I believe most people would reference the Met Gala and her quite tone-deaf TikTok as the final thing to make them say, I've had enough of this, I'm done. And while I do agree that this is probably a contributing factor, I think it's still that, but mixed with this overwhelming sense of powerlessness to not only aid or support those overseas, but also just even ourselves. Many of us have gone through college, gone through our masters even, we've played the game, and still we be struggling. I had originally thought that this reached a crescendo in 2020 and 2021, at least for the decade. But damn, that was an egregious miscalculation. There is such a sense of frozenness that many of us feel out here. I feel like I'm frozen in 2020 in so many ways financially. I feel like so many young adults in 2019 were more financially stable than they are now. They were gearing up to purchase their first homes or condos, going on their first vacations, planning weddings, just relatively doing well, or at least steadily building to being well. But then the pandemic came, or for us in the United States, our government decided to finally acknowledge that there was a pandemic happening. The way I was about to pour one whole cup of oil into this batter when it definitely says 1/3 cup. Ooh, haha, Nara Smith who. But ever since then, it just feels like things have gone from bad to worse. In 2020, people went into major debt, defaulted on loans, maxed out credit cards, missed car payments. Here in the United States, most of our rent and mortgages never stopped. Our monthly expenses never stop. Sure, some of us were approved to pay things a bit later down the line, but the debts were still there. And once the go-ahead was given for most of these lenders, they just immediately went back to business as usual, which continued and continues to financially devastate many Americans. When you compare the average person's present-day circumstances or 2020 circumstances to what they had going on in 2019, it's just depressing because it feels like starting over again, and for what? To pay astronomical rent prices, to have the glaring knowledge that there is an extremely small likelihood of most of us ever knowing financial stability, to live in a world that can't even get its shit together enough to just be generally safe. That discontent, the feeling of being disconnected from our own futures, I think is what boiled up the anger and frustration we're seeing online right now. It's not just that the Met Gala exists, or that Haley is tone deaf, or that X, Y, or Z influencer or celebrity refuses to platform anything about a meaningful cause. It's those actions paired with your endless screams for help, for acknowledgement, for people to even somewhat see past themselves. So let's go ahead and tear into Haley's apology a bit to really illustrate this point. When she said, "I'm just a normal person," I could almost hear the internet's collective groan.
I was not invited by Anna Wintour. I did not hold an actual invitation to the Met Gala. I was involved only as a host, meaning that the moment that the last attendee left the hotel, I went home and I watched the Met Gala coverage from my couch with my friends. The dress that I wore was made by hand by a friend. I reached out to him and he started to help me and make dresses for me by hand out of literally the kindness of his own heart. I have never paid him a cent. He has never paid me. I wouldn't have had the dresses to go to these events if it hadn't been for him. This now brings me to the audio that I used for that particular video. And first and foremost, before I say anything, I need to apologize. I never would have chosen a sound on purpose to highlight wealth disparity or elitism. I never even thought it would be taken in that way because I wasn't elite enough to even be invited to the Met Gala because I'm not elite. I'm a normal person.
I personally snorted while watching because I feel like influencers like Haley mistake no truly distinguishable talent or just having an average personality for being an average person. Haley herself is profoundly average. However, her life is not. Haley, or any influencer or creator, is replaceable. I think that because she knows that, she really does seem to appreciate and bask in the fame and opportunities that she has achieved thus far, because she knows it can all go away at any point in time. And because I believe that she is aware of that, I also believe that she knows that while she is average, her life, her career, and its trajectory are extraordinary. Like several others, Haleyy seems to willingly trade either authenticity or empathetic morality in exchange for a few more years in the limelight in extraordinary circumstances. I said authenticity or empathetic morality because I'm not sure which I believe to be more of the cause, simply because I don't really have that much exposure to Haleyy and her content. But in this apology, she danced around the causes people were obviously vying for her to show support to, so Palestine, Congo, or Sudan mainly.
Because the things going on in the world today are weighing heavily on everyone's hearts. Innocent men, women, and children are dying. People do not have access to food and water. People are being kicked out of their homes. There are so many things going on in this world that are just wrong. I know that this situation is very complex. I also know that I don't know the right thing to do or say a lot of the time, which leads me to the question everyone is asking, which is, why don't I talk about it?
She claimed that she didn't want to speak on these unnamed subjects because she is not educated or informed enough to do so with the amount of justice and nuance that they deserve.
Why don't I talk about it? And it's simply because I am not informed enough to talk about it in a meaningful and educational way. I do not have the background knowledge to educate or discuss in a meaningful way. I grew on social media as a comedy creator. That doesn't mean that the second I started gaining followers on the platform that I automatically knew the right thing to say when it came to world affairs or wars or disputes or death or destruction or crisis. I still am just that same girl who wanted to post her first comedy video.
What that seemed to translate to other people is, I don't want to rock the boat, lose followers, or brand deals. If that's the case, then she lacks authenticity, because this evaluation could imply that she probably has some sense of care, even if she doesn't show it publicly, but she doesn't care enough to potentially forsake herself. However, I'd err on the side of she does not care at all. She does not want to hear about it or have people at her throat about it because it's not something that affects her life directly. That would indicate a lack of empathetic morality, which just loosely refers to building moral principles based on an empathetic response. So, for example, wanting to help people who are suffering irrespective of the politics that surround them. Some have also called Haleyy stupid, but she's definitely not. She had enough foresight to contradict people's claims of her intentionally making fun of us peasants by using the let them eat cake sound, by showing that at some point it was a pretty popular soundbite and trend.
When I film my TikToks, I love to use trending audios and sounds that people are currently using, and this was one of them. The sound has been used in over 110,000 TikTok videos. It's the current trending audio of a glow-up trend in the United States and abroad. It's also been used by different makeup artists in the last couple weeks to create Marie Antoinette looks. It's been used by big and small creators alike with no negative feedback or no negative discussion in the comments.
So therefore, she's probably smart enough to learn about the most popular and heavily discussed socio-political issue around her, just enough to maybe not offer a political prescription or to have an in-depth scholarly knowledge, but probably enough to figure out if she wanted to be a part of providing aid to those under warring and desolate conditions. My probably pretty unpopular opinion, who would have thought, is that I don't really care if influencers or celebrities do not offer knowledge about certain socio-political issues or even take a firm stance on them. If it is truly a question of ignorance, I'm not under the well-intentioned but very misguided belief that these topics are super easy to learn about, especially when it seems to be another peak time for them. If you were to begin researching the decades-old war and conflict between Palestine and Israel, you would have to wade through so much misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, and incomplete news stories, etc. I'm not saying it can't be done because I'm doing it and have been doing it for the last couple of years. However, I have a formal education that has provided me with the tools to see what is not seen nor said, even if I am unfamiliar with the topic. Meaning, I can see the red flags in new information even without knowing what is truly objective within the information. When people who are more informed and more educated of a topic tell someone to go research without providing guidance or direction, it can become very overwhelming. Because whether some people want to admit it or not, some influencers in particular do not say anything, not necessarily because of money or brand deals, but because they don't want to feel pressured or forced into doing or saying something that they don't know anything about. Ignorance truly is bliss, because when you are ignorant, you feel no urgency. And when you are forced out of ignorance or have some sense of awareness because of your followers commenting watermelons, these people are now faced with another issue that many of them seem to have no care in correcting, which is historical and political illiteracy. To make a statement on something that you have no more than media headlines as a knowledge base on, that's probably very daunting, especially when you're doing it in front of hundreds of thousands and even millions of people. And because there is a sense of urgency for that post, for that TikTok to be made, people do shy away. And do not mistake this for a justification for these actions or inactions, but this topic does necessitate our ability to understand it in order to rectify it. This is why I am okay with influencers and celebrities that are not politically overt to support causes in a manner that attempts to render them apolitical. Let me explain. On TikTok, there is a creator by the name of Chris Olsen who has been criticized for painting the happenings in Palestine as a humanitarian crisis only. Kind of with the framing of, this just sort of happened.
We want to use Chris Olsen's promotion of a GoFundMe as how people dilute everything going on in Gaza as a humanitarian crisis. Now let's talk about Chris's wording.
This is just a family wanting to reunite, so no matter what, I think that's something we can all be supporting.
Interesting choice of words. I guess we can presume that Chris chose those words not to upset his Zionist Israeli mutuals or to not upset his agency that so proudly stands with Israel. This didn't start on October 7th, and you're acting like it started today. And months of this, and the one word we get out of this individual is the most politically correct GoFundMe he could find. We do want celebrities to help, and when helping, do not depoliticize the struggle.
It's also very obvious that the reason why Chris suddenly decided to hop onto one GoFundMe in a very depoliticized way, because he saw the blockout trend that is going viral on TikTok, and he was on those block lists for his silence, so he decided to save himself.
I don't disagree with this criticism, not at all. However, in this case, in this very particular case with Palestinians needing immediate aid, with the Sudanese and the Congolese needing food, water, and medical aid, I'll take it. And I'll take it because he still spread awareness. Not in the way you would have wanted, but it was done. He also exposed his large following to Operation Olive Branch, making it more possible for families to get the money they need to escape. The aid is the main event, the center, and the focal point. Most influencers will never be anything more than a palatable introduction to the cause at hand. Organizations like Operation Olive Branch, as well as creators like Salma, act as redirection sources of vital political information. So the flow of traffic is kind of like this. Apolitical tiptoeing creators like Chris Olsen, true pro-Palestinian creators and educators, online and offline advocacy, and each step comes with a reminder to donate when possible. So you don't need to pat this man on the back, nor do you need to stop your criticism of his wording. But I would say do it constructively and in a way where he can actually learn and apply the instruction. The goal in mind is not to win over the influencer, but to win their influence. While it would be great if people didn't have such parasocial bonds to influencers to where they can hear harsh criticism about their faves without jumping down the commentators' throats, we just don't live in that world. Because these influencers' audience can often act as shields that can encase them in an echo chamber, in order to penetrate through the audience and get through to the influencer, the feedback has to be delivered in a way that is so charitable, not nice, charitable, and in good faith that they cannot ignore it. And if they do, well, that's what Blockout 2024 is for, right? Before we get into Blockout 2024, I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the oven, and then I'll come back when the cake is ready to be frosted. Okay, and now we're back. I got my cake right here. No comments. Okay. All right. All right. We're gonna go ahead and frost it while we talk about the Blockout 2024 trend. I'm calling out the Block 2024 a trend because I call it as I see it. Blockout 2024's initial purpose was to deliberately mass block specific celebrities and influencers. It was meant to be a targeted campaign that not only demonstrated a breaking point for the public, but to cause real monetary damage to these celebrities and influencers. This cause challenged people's parasocial relationships and unhinged sense of care of wealthy people who probably don't give two shits about us, and I love to see it. The first whisperings of a potential issue here for me came from when it seemed like the goalposts of the cause kept moving and shifting, and the justifications became unclear or muddy. For example, some people wanted to add food review TikToker Keith Lee to the block list, even though he has apparently spoken out about Palestine back in 2023, but he crossed the picket line, so to speak, by accepting a brand deal with Pizza Hut, who is on a list published by the BDS movement. BDS, by the way, refers to boycott, divest, and sanctions.
At the time that me and my family got the Pizza Hut deal, I was not aware that it was on a block list. I made a previous video and I stated and admitted that I am ignorant when it comes to politics. Now, I did take the time to educate myself on the situation in Gaza. Me and my family were approached with the opportunity to have a pizza with our name on it. I respectfully declined it and I said if we're gonna do something, we're gonna do something for the community. So that's why the pizza was named the Family Community Pizza, because it was about giving back to the community. Yes, it was another way to support my family. And I always say I do what I feel like I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it. I want to be very clear. I didn't make this decision solely for personal financial gain and intentionally ignore what's going on in Gaza just to make a check. That wasn't my thought process and it wasn't my intentions, and I refuse for that to be the narrative. Every partnership that me and my family have ever accepted has always been intentional. And I want to be very clear with my intentions with this. It was to give back to the community and continue to support my family.
However, when he posted a recent apology, some people wanted to renege on the blog to allow for accountability and for second chances, while others were more of one and done. I want to use TikTok creator and comedian Aaron's project Pass the Hat as an alternate online cause that is both purposeful and effective. Aaron's Pass the Hat project is essentially to match influencers with Palestinian families in need and encourages them to use their platforms to make the GoFundMe campaigns as visible as possible. In partnership with Operation Olive Branch, she has accomplished so much with this initiative, and some of it was done by using intentional rage bait to make people watch, by name dropping influencers who had not responded to her requests, and by encouraging her followers to tag those influencers in her posts. You know you're supposed to do a crumb coat first, but I'm using rainbow chip frosting, so I don't know if I can do a crumb coat. Aaron's project works because she is clear, concise, and consistent. She accepts that her methodologies are going to inevitably piss people off, but she's willing to roll with it because, in her words, who cares when there's so much more at stake here?
Have you talked to Brittany Broski? Because apparently people are making a bunch of videos about like me and her because they want her to speak out too. And full disclosure, I really wish Brittany and a lot of big creators would speak out. And any large creator that hasn't been doing anything but then like sees a video and is like, I want to, message me, come by. I would love to have you. I am not yelling at you. I am cheering for you to come and help. But what happened last night was I was doing a live and it was getting no views and I was like, huh. And someone was like, and they're like, what do you think of Brittany Broski? And I was like, I really haven't seen her videos. I hope she stands up for Palestine. Like, I hope other creators do too. And they were like, you should start fake beef with her and put it on live and then do it. And I was like, no. And then I did it.
It might be unfair to compare Blockout 2024 to Pass the Hat because the latter is centralized upon Aaron, while Blockout 2024 is very much decentralized, so the Pass the Hat narrative can remain more constant more easily. But the impact of the former completely pales in comparison. The only result of Blockout 2024 that I have seen thus far at the time of scripting is Kim Kardashian losing 3 million followers. But Hailey Bailey, on the other hand, still has 9.9 million, so about a 100K difference from her initial 10 million. I know some people are going to say that it's too early to see results, but the thing is, if this were truly concentrated and believed in, we would have at least seen Hailey Bailey fall a bit more. People have been tuned out of the Kardashians for a hot little minute, especially younger millennials and Gen Z, so I don't take it as a win quite yet because it was just a little bit too easy. What I think is a win, to me, is the rise of preemptive performative activism. It's a win because of the same logic I used earlier with the casting of socio-political issues as apolitical by these people. They have introduced the information and calls to their audiences, and the funds are rising. That's good, but it's still a trend. All right, I'm gonna take another quick break because I finished my crumb coat. So I'm gonna put it in the fridge and then we're gonna make it look pretty. Okay, and we are back with our chilled cake. So some of the posts I've been seeing on TikTok as of late in relation to Block 2024 is that in their excitement to be a part of something, to be a part of hating on the rich, people are decentering the cause and putting more of an emphasis on their hatred of whatever person, rather than internalizing the underlying message of Blockout 2024, which is that we will no longer be holding these people in high regard or admiration. People are trying to make Macklemore, for example, the #1 most followed account on TikTok. Macklemore is a rapper who recently created a pro-Palestine song that went absolutely viral. Macklemore is not the issue. The man is walking the walk in addition to talking the talk. What the issue actually is here is covertly inspiring a rise of new influencers and creators that will intentionally hyperfixate on this cause in exchange for fame. While it is still a win for well-established celebrities and influencers to do performative actions at times, at least for right now, it is not for new influencers or creators. We cannot just simply replace old influencers with new influencers just because they say they believe what we believe, because they will come up in an already broken social and internet hierarchy and repeat the same misdeeds. I mean, look at the fractured TikTok beauty community in comparison to the ruined, deceased YouTube beauty community. The large creators have done nothing but repeat the same exact mistakes. We have to find a way to sufficiently overhaul influencer culture rather than just encouraging a new wave of mouthpieces who are just responding to a trend. Because trends do die out, and I do think that this Block 2024 trend will die out. These mouthpieces turned influencers will become lost, irrelevant, and usually start lashing out and causing drama for the sake of clout. And thus, the cycle continues. I understand the sentiment of wanting to uplift those who support the same causes as you do. I personally love to rep eco-organizations to my friends. However, online, we need to be a bit more perceptive about who we give flowers to and when, because if the bar is too low, then we encourage the performativity and surface level understanding. But if the bar is too high to where even Allah himself cannot touch it, then there is a very real risk of demoralization, which is the boat that many educational creators who have already been centering these crises and conflicts into their content for a number of years are feeling. Perfection in execution is not the goal here. It's to acknowledge the shortcomings and to speculate on a possible regrouping. Kind of like this horrid cake right here. There are things I could have done to make this cake probably look better. I could have brought the proper tools for smoothing the icing. I could have gotten the correct kind of icing. I could have done research and looked to people who already have the knowledge of this, because I am far from the first person to try. Now I could just say, well, hey, it tastes good, to deflect from how ugly it looks. But instead, I'm gonna choose to learn more so I can better myself in the future. It's the same thing with online movements and trends. We're far from the first people to want to come together in protest of something. There's literature that we can and should be referencing, but some tinkering should be expected because social media and the internet and how ingrained it is in our lives is a very new aspect. Good intentions are not enough to prosper and to be effective, so critique of actions and discourse should be allowed. And that's really all I have for you guys today. Kind of a short video, but I do hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed seeing that I can, in fact, not bake very well or make something look exceptionally pretty. I will see you guys in my next video. Until then, bye.